two sizes. That's up.
So no se oye.
We're gonna get a tripod rather than just holding it.
Hello.
Hello.
Do you want to put your?
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
No.
that's it.
Wow.
And we'll send somebody right now. Okay. Stephanie Rosenthal, right? Yeah.
So in reference to somebody having a question in reference to the recipe, when it comes to paellas, there are many different types of paellas.
What?
There are two main ones, or the Valencian one and the Alicante one, which is done with seafood. When we have a lot of different opinions when it comes to paella, but essentially it started off as a poor man's dish. So whatever the people had in their area, whether in their farm or is what they use. So actually the first paellas were actually a vegetarian one with snails. So those were the things that were really abundant and weren't cost a lot of money. Now the two official ones, as I mentioned, are the Valencian paella that has chicken, rabbit, vegetables, and snails, and as well as the Alicante one, which comes with seafood. There's a lot of different variants with paella in terms of the ingredients. The one I wanted to do today is the first one. Is I wanted to use ingredients that you can easily find in the grocery store. So when you do this again at home, you can do it and you don't have to try to find rabbit, which is hard to find, or sometimes duck is hard to find. We wanted to use vegetables that you can find in the grocery store. So, and also get some good authentic flavors of paella. What today also we're going to be able to see is that what brings the flavors out of a paella. We're doing today a Valencian style paella versus an Alicante style paella. The Valencian style paella, even though everybody at home should have their broth, what we're doing here is we're making the broth from the ingredients that go into the paella, and we create a boil, and we cook it down, and that's how we cook the broth before we add the rice in. Alicante style is when you have broth already pre-made. You stir fry the rice, you saute the rice with the sofrito, and then you add the boiling broth afterward. So this one, if you don't have chicken broth at home and another day, not to worry. You can make it with ingredients. As I'm going to be doing here, and you can see my paella, I'm going to be using water. So I'm going to be able to get all the flavors of the paella because of the method I'm cooking without using chicken broth. So hopefully today your paellas will even be super because that way you have a broth and it doesn't take as much time. So it's about 6:05. Do we have most of the people online?
We have 18 people.
18 people. We're missing one person.
Let me see here. Yeah, so we're actually missing 2 people, I guess.
No, it was 22 people total. And then All right, guys. Well, here we go. I have my fire here started. So first thing I'm going to be doing, making sure I have everything in front of me. I have my chicken, olive oil, salt, vegetables. The vegetables we're using today are green beans, red peppers, and cauliflower. We have tomato, and we have sweet paprika, and we have saffron. And over here we have the rice. My paella is going to be done with for 3 people. So if you put your paella pan or big saute dish on the oven, turn it up, let it heat up a little bit, and the first thing I do is add salt to it because I don't want a method to not have it be burned on the edges. And I'll be putting olive oil. Now for olive oil, I put it about 100 milliliters. About 100 milliliters per person. So this is about what I'll be using. And we're going to start with chicken. Now, typically, go. And I salt the chicken.
I muted them. Yep. Yep. We're texting. I got the information. He's going to go right now. We'll take care of it. I don't.
So when I saute the chicken here, obviously, or not obviously, you want your chicken cooked. But what I'm looking for specifically is to brown the meat. And when I mean brown it, I mean just like the color brown. So with the olive oil and the chicken being brown and the salt, making sure you put enough salt in the beginning. That's probably the first and the most fundamental step for the paella is in order to get the flavors. Making sure you brown the meat really well, you use enough salt, and I just want to make sure that each piece has a little bit of pinch of salt on it. That's how I think about it. I'm not sure if anybody has a question regarding to what type of chicken I use. The best chicken for this is using the chicken leg and the chicken thigh. So I usually buy quarters whenever I do this type of paella at the restaurant, and I chop it up in these little pieces. It provides the most flavor. Chicken breast is not good for this type of paella because it gets very dry and also doesn't provide much flavor. Okay. Now this whole process from beginning to end should take about 40 minutes, even by making the broth without making the broth beforehand. How's everybody doing? Is there any questions?
Your chicken's just getting browner faster than mine.
Her chicken is getting brown? Okay. So I do have a slight advantage here. I am using wood versus I'm sure everybody else in home is using gas. Don't worry about it. Just be patient with it. Moving around a little bit helps get everything going. Interesting thing about the wood fire, I always have to think 5-10 minutes ahead of time always in terms of the process of the paella to make sure that I get it what I want, because it's not like the gas at home. So in some ways, there are advantages of gas and there's advantages of wood. The biggest advantage of gas is that you can actually get it perfect every time because you can control the temperature well. Yeah.
Is there a way to start it from the thing since it's recorded?
Oh, do you think that's always done this far?
Oh, wow.
When I start seeing a little bit of brown, I'm going to start heading to the next step. I'm going to start heading towards the vegetables here. So I have a little bit of brown. I'm not completely finished. I'm not worried yet before I take it to the final step, but I want to start getting the vegetables going. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a little bit of the cauliflower. I just want to roast it a little bit. Cauliflower takes a little bit longer to cook. Little pinch of salt. At home, see if you can take out a plate, because that's where the vegetable is going to go next. After you just slightly saute it a little bit. On the cauliflower, I don't necessarily want to brown it too much, but I do want to cook it slightly. All right. Have the cauliflower little sauteed here. Hasn't turned brown yet, but that's okay. And when I grab it, make sure dump a little bit of the olive oil. Make sure the olive oil stays in the pan as much as possible. but don't worry about it if it comes down to the plate. Okay, next up, got the red peppers. It's okay if a little bit of cauliflower stays in. This one I move it out a little bit just to make sure everything starts flowing right. If you notice the chicken, like the skins or pieces are stuck to the pan, don't worry about it. We have a cleaning method that's part of the cooking process. Oh, thank you. You know, sometimes I get asked when I start cooking paella about like, what are you cooking? It smells wonderful. It's like, all I have is just chicken, olive oil, and salt. Sometimes the basic ingredients done right and the right smells wonderful. People forget a lot of times is, you know, as we get to more elaborate cooking, what, you know, how awesome some of the basic flavors are that nature gives us. Okay. Here again, I'm taking some of the red peppers out. If some peppers stay in, that's okay. Okay. And here we go, the green beans. Now, the green beans is an important element here. I wanted to use green beans today because they're available in the store. Whether you go to Harris Theater, Whole Foods, Giant, Safeway, whatever it is, put a little salt on it. But here at the restaurant, we actually have the opportunity to get runner beans, or they're also called runner beans or Romano beans. That's actually the more appropriate vegetable. It looks like a sugar snap pea, but a little bit thicker. The green bean or the Romano bean is very important because that greenness will actually add so much flavor to the broth. And if anybody wants to know what I use for broth in the paella that you have at home, it's just the chicken and a little bit of green bean. So I did the same method. I used the chicken, I browned it, I added some of the green beans, brown it, and I added the water after and boil it. So essentially, we're using the exact same process here. It is important in this juncture to make sure that the green bean gets a little bit more brown, not as brown as the chicken, but it does cook a little bit because it's a tough bean. And even with the boiling process that comes later, you want to make sure it's cooked because it adds really good flavor to the paella. How's everybody paella looking? Are we all cooking now, or just learning, or what are we doing? Yeah,
Looking great.
that's pretty exciting.
We're cooking. It smells amazing.
Thank you. Well, it's all your efforts, not mine.
We're a little behind. So all we've done is brown chicken, cauliflower, peppers, and beans.
Yes, Charles, that's it for right now. It's browning the chicken, the bell peppers, the cauliflower, and the green beans.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, here I have the green beans cooked a little bit, starting to brown. Now, I don't know how your all's paella looks at home, but if you look here in the middle, I'm putting everything to the side here for the next step. You want to get a close up here? So you see, here's all the stickiness, all the brownness. That's all wonderful. And now, where do you clean it? By adding tomato. So I use 3 spoons. This is a paella for 3. I do that sweet paprika. And here's a little garlic. Now the tomato, through its acid, and it starts cleaning everything. And this is what you call the sofrito. Some people have different recipes for sofrito. This is the most fundamental, and in my opinion, the best one. Sweet paprika, garlic, and tomato. Now start mixing everything together. As you start mixing everything together, start seeing some more of the moisture come out of the green beans and the tomato be cooked down. They should just use a spoon for each person that they're doing the paella for. I gave a little extra just because you never know. You know, somebody shows up uninvited to your house, you have a little bit more. Okay, so here's the paella cooked down. You see the colors here. For me, it's all about the color. So here we're looking like a dark burgundy. And now I'm gonna add the water. Tablespoon. Okay. Give me a second on that. So here, the first thing I do, because this is paella for 3 people, 3 to 1. So I put 1 liter, which comes out to be, so for those people home, I know there's a lot of paellas for 2. So let me go from that side. So you have a cup, you put 3 cups in. Okay, you already have broth. I need to make broth here. So this level here is what you would have more or less at home, portioned out according to your amount of people you ask for. So here I have I added water, and it's cooking. It hasn't started boiling yet. That's a good thing. I don't want things to go too quickly for us at this moment. So this is the level where I know that I need to add the rice. So I know that I can measure it. I can also know it from memory. So when it starts boiling at this level is when I add the rice. But because I don't have broth like you guys at home, I'm gonna add more water. And I'm gonna let it cook down. So now at this juncture, I'm gonna add the saffron. So just to double check, I would measure it if you have a measuring cup after. So a person for a portion for one is 100 grams of rice, which is a half a cup. So that should be a cup and a half. Usually the containers that we provided are like 2 full cups, or so a little bit more. It's okay if it cooks down a little bit. So for the saffron, I'm gonna, in my hands, I'm gonna start breaking it up.
So at this point, we should have already added the broth.
Question is, we've already added the broth?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. At this point, you added the broth, and now I'm about to add the saffron.
Really quickly,
And can you go back? Did you add the water instead of the broth?
I
Because
did
you don't
add the
have
water
broth?
instead of the broth. Yes.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I did that for 2 reasons. One, at this point, to buy me some time in case I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask questions. 2, also to prove a point that you can do this without broth. You can do this paella just the way I'm doing it at home without having to do broth, and it comes out just as delicious, if not more. The broth that you have there is basically from the same ingredients that we're using today in the paella pan. Just the chicken that I browned it, olive oil and salt, and a little bit of green beans. So that way, the thing about paella, what makes the paella a paella versus rice with things, as some Valencians and Spanish people say. And the key element is a paella, whether it's a Valencian paella or Alicante paella. The thing about paella is that the protagonist is the rice. So it's all about the flavor of the rice. The chicken, the other vegetables is important, but they're more function like toppings on a pizza. They're the elements that provide flavor to the rice. So here we have
How much paprika were we supposed to use?
sure.
I have a question about tomatoes. I don't have tomatoes in my bag. Is this
So
supposed
hold
to
on
be
one question
whole
at a time. There was
tomatoes?
a question on broth is a 3-to-1 ratio. So if you have if it's one person, you got a half a cup of rice. So you use a cup and a half of broth.
So we need 1 cup of rice, 3 cups of broth.
The saffron that comes in the package, just use the whole thing. We measured it out.
Did you measure out the paprika as well?
The paprika is probably a little bit more, just in case. That I, wanted to make sure everybody had some.
Okay. So how much should we use?
So the sweet paprika is 1 tablespoon per person.
I'm sorry, somebody mentioned that they didn't get tomatoes. Can you confirm?
Yeah, that's me. I didn't get tomatoes, so I'm just wondering, do I put like canned tomatoes, a fresh tomato? What do I use?
So just to make sure everybody knows that the tomato, we're already paraded for everybody. So it looks like this. All it is tomato that we put it through a blender, basically.
Okay, I have 2 paprikas, so I think maybe I got double the paprika and no tomatoes. So it should be like tomato sauce?
Yes, not tomato sauce, but we take tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, and we just we break it down through a blender.
Chef, for those of us who are behind, what is the order of broth, rice, saffron?
What's that question again? I'm sorry.
In the what is the order of the broth, the rice, and the saffron?
Okay, so I haven't added any rice yet.
Okay.
I want if you guys we put the broth first, then the saffron, and then once we get it boiling at the right level, we add the rice.
Gotcha. Okay.
So and where I'm at right now, I haven't added the rice yet because I'm making broth right now from the ingredients in the paella. So in competitions, we've done it always this way in terms of like everybody has the same ingredients and use water, and the idea is to use the ingredients to make the broth. Here at home, you have a little bit of a cheat sheet by having the broth already pre-made and sent to you.
Okay, and you said you pre-measured for a lot of us, and I'm making paella for 5. I have what looks to be about 1/4 of a cup of saffron. I'm supposed to use all of this saffron?
So Tanya's asking, she's making for 5.
Right.
Should she use all of that saffron?
Yes. Yes.
So Tanya, that is a yes. And
I just wanted to know how much tomato should I use for 5?
How much tomato? So I use, if it's a large tomato, I use a half a tomato per person, more or less.
Stephanie has a question to you. How much broth for 4 people?
So you would use, 4 people is 2 cups of rice, so you'd have 6 cups of broth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
If ours is boiling, should we add the rice now?
If you have the exact amount of broth needed for the rice that you're going to put in later, I would add a little bit of water and let it cook down just a slight bit before you add the rice. It would ensure more flavor from the ingredients.
Did you say you gave us exactly the amount of broth we needed for the amount of people we're cooking for?
Everything should have been prepackaged in that way. You should have a little bit of extra broth. So for a paella for 1, we filled it up mostly to the top. So you have 2 cups of broth, even though you may have only had 1 person. So 1 per serving is 1.5 cups of broth. If it's the small containers, each small container is 2 cups of broth.
Hi, are there any other questions while we're waiting?
Sorry?
I'm just asking the group if there's any other questions to ask you while we're waiting.
So I have one. So what you mentioned that we need to bring it to a certain kind of boil. What are we looking for to get the right boil to know when to add the rice?
The question is about the boil,
right?
And what type of boil should they be looking for when to add the rice?
Sure.
This will be about the level again.
So once we get to the level, you want it to be boiling pretty well. Not at full boil. You want it to be like this, fast. So, because you want to have the paella pan on high, and that the boiling is at a high when you add the rice. So once you have the boil on a high, I'll preset it right now, but you do 10 minutes on high heat, 5 minutes on medium, and then 3 minutes back on high. So with bomba rice, you want 18 minutes of cooking time total. And as you can see here, I'm starting to have a good boil. Yeah.
What can you say the cooking times for the cooking interval for the rice one more time?
Question, please.
Yeah, the cooking times for the rice, 3 on.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
So cooking times for the rice is 10 minutes on high, 3 minutes on medium, and the last 3 minutes on high. So right now, if you look at what I have here, it's boiling down. I have my rice. I have a little bit of cauliflower, a little bit of red pepper, and salt. Now you might think I'm crazy, but you want to make sure you have enough salt on the broth. So essentially, once it cooks down, taste it with a spoon, and it should be slightly salted. Like if you made a chicken soup, you would think it would be a little bit too salty. And that would be the perfect level of salt needed for the paella, because then the rice absorbs the salt, and then you get the perfect flavor and level of saltness. So if you're not 100% there yet, the other aspect is that once you add the rice, within 3 minutes, retaste, and that's the perfect moment to understand if you have enough salt in it. At that point, it should be just perfectly amount of salt in it, if not a little slight, because the rice hasn't absorbed all the salt yet. So here I have a good boil overall, good fire, it's cooking down.
And are you ever mixing the rice or you just let it go?
What's the question? I let it go. So it's not risotto, so you don't stir the rice. What I do with the rice is make sure of balance. So one of the key components is symmetry. And I know because I've lived in apartments, I've lived in houses, the level of the paella pan or whatever saute pan you're using is fundamental to be straight. And I would say half the time, the level that you have at home is not straight. So what do? You have to turn the paella, at different levels of cooking time to make sure everything is even. You want to make sure that in other words, if you take a level, sometimes what I've done in the past when outside events, I put my phone that has its own level and make sure that it's straight, because you want to make sure all the rice gets cooked. Because we're not putting anything on top of it to cover. This is not like a basmati rice or any of those other type of rices. Here, it gets absorbed and it gets dry. So you want to make sure everything is absorbed. And if you have a pile of rice that's not cooked on the left hand side because it's uneven, then that's not good. So when I add the rice, I want to make sure that everything is even. Like if I were to hand drop every single grain of rice into the paella pan, it should be equally even. But the paella pan itself comes down to the middle a little bit. So always in the middle is going to be a little bit more than to the edges. On the edges, I want to make sure that it's 1 gram of one rice grain without being another grain of rice on top. That's the style that we're used to get the most flavor for. I know that if you're home, you don't have a large paella pan. If you're 5 people for me, I know there were some people that got paella for 5. 5 people for me, it means a paella pan like this big. And obviously you may not have that paella pan at home. And, you know, what do you do? Yeah, you can make it thicker. When we do it here at the restaurant, we want to make sure it's as thin as possible for the maximum amount of flavor. Right now, I'm going to check here, make sure that everything is, also at this point, you get it, make sure that everything is off the pan, so there's nothing sticking to it. So it needs to come down another like 5 minutes here before I add the rice.
Chef, do you have a technique for adding the rice to the pan so that we can make sure that it kind of goes in evenly, or that it sits evenly?
Yes, I'm going to happily show you. It's one of my exciting parts. So there's various techniques. People use lacrosse. Here for this paella, we use what we call lluvia, rain. So we want to make sure we put it as rain on top. So we basically like drop it on all around like that and make sure everything is even. So I literally always try to make sure that I try to like hand put the rice exactly where I want it. And then I slightly adjust it to make sure everything is has symmetry. And that all the rice is being able to cook. All right. So here's a question for everybody. Is the color similar to you guys here at home? For those of you cooking with me tonight?
Yeah, it looks similar.
Awesome.
So I'm just now browning my peppers and green beans, but it will look like that. I'm hopeful.
Did you?
Soon, soon.
What? Oh. Oh. If you're a little bit ahead of me, lower the temperature down a little bit so it won't go too fast. I'm almost there.
Chef, at the point where we put the tomatoes and the saffron and garlic, what else should be in the pan? Just the chicken?
When they're adding in the tomatoes,
Right.
saffron and is there anything else that should be in the pan?
So when you're adding the tomatoes, it's just the sweet paprika and the garlic to cook within the chicken and the green beans. Afterward, once you hit the broth in, that's when you put the saffron. Don't put the saffron unless you have the broth in.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
It's going through the broth pretty fast.
Yes.
Would you recommend more broth or water?
I would recommend water because you don't want to add too much flavor and be overwhelming with salt. I did have the broth have a little bit of salt in it, so you know, depending on your level of taste saltiness, I would add a little water and just slow down a little bit on the stove. I'm about to put in the rice in about a couple minutes here. Wow, that's amazing. Well, congratulations. Big fan of babies and kids. Pretty excited that everybody's joining into my I mean, personally, this is an honor for me to be cooking with you tonight. Here at the restaurant, this is a complete wood fire kitchen. We have a rotisserie here, charbroiler, green egg, in my paella pit that I can have up to 4 small paellas at a time or 2 large ones at a time. Here, I don't know if you can see the dining room. We were able to set up to 30, and we already like preset it up for 18 to make sure every table is 6 feet apart. So we're living in a global epidemic, and I'm going to be the first one and always say thank you and for joining me tonight. And you joining us tonight means a lot. It means we're able to keep employees. Today, we hired a new employee. We went from 18 employees down to 4, and now we're back up to 5 plus myself. So hopefully we can move things in the right direction, and you being here tonight makes that possible. So thank you again. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, so I'm about to put in the rice in. First thing I do is make sure I have plenty of wood. So, because as soon as you put the rice in, the boil slows down. Sure, 10 minutes high, 5 minutes medium, and another 3 minutes high. Not very always possible when you do it with wood fire. All right, here we go. So I'm about to put the rice in. So little by little, swirl, go back inside. Clockwise or counterclockwise makes no difference, okay? Now make sure all the rice is covered. At this point, look at your chicken. Your chicken should be, depending on your paella pan, should be submerged a little bit. Spread it out. And right now, I'm just, making sure everything is even. Okay. Now we got 10 minutes on high. Oh, sure. First, I also wanted to say thank you to a couple other people here tonight. We got Carlos that's videotaping me. He's my general manager of Slate and Xiquet. And also the moderator, my good friend, Jason here, making sure that all your questions get answered. And then, yeah, she reminded me, yeah, it's Mother's Day weekend. And if you go online on TikTok under Xiquet, we have great specials. We just added 3 different desserts on top of that. We have a carrot cake, we have a key lime pie, we also have a passion fruit pie, and a Xiquet chocolate tart. So, yes. Okay. Once you start seeing the grain as the rice, when it starts being absorbed, that's when you add the other vegetables on top. That's about 12, 14 minutes in.
Okay, so confirming we don't stir, right? Like we just let it go once it gets in?
No, sir. Nope. Yeah. What I do, I make sure I have a spoon. Just make sure everything is even. I'm not stirring. I'm just making sure everything is spread out. I don't see like a small little mountain of rice that needs to be like taken apart. Spoon's very important up to the very end.
If you get rice just on your chicken, do you just knock it off? How do you prefer to do that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, sure. So like, if as you're putting in the rice, if you get rice just like stuck on top of your chicken, how do you get that off and down into the bottom since you're not supposed to stir?
When there's rice on your chicken, when you laid it over,
Right.
how do you get it?
Like it's like the grains. I mean.
Oh, I just move it with either like tongs or a spoon.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Chef, one question here. If we perhaps dropped the rice a little early before the liquid level had reduced to the level that we saw in your pan, do we alter the timing, the 10-5-3? Or how would you go about that? What's the fix there?
I'll ask Danny right now.
Okay.
They want to know what's the fix, what happened.
Added the rice too soon. I would just make sure everything is on medium. You know, so you can at home slow, medium, or high. You're able to control and fix it. So make sure you can always taste the grain of rice. You want it to be al dente. And so if you added the rice too soon, depending on how much broth, if you feel like you have too much broth in, you might want to put it on a high. If you have too little broth in, you might want to just keep it on low or medium.
And wine recommendations, Danny.
Wine recommendations. For this type of paella, you can go white, rosé, or red. If you use a white, a Chardonnay or an Albariño goes well. For rosé, French or Spanish type of rosés would good. The French is a little bit more floral. The Spanish will have a little bit more fruit to it. In terms of reds, I would go with a Pinot Noir or a Tempranillo, something a little lighter. A Tempranillo maybe from Rioja or Ribera del Duero. Not sweet, yeah. You're looking for a good acid, yeah, and a dry wine. So I still don't see like rice come in, so I don't put the other vegetables in yet. I don't want the other vegetables to sink into the bottom. Cocktail recommendation. I would use like a gin cocktail or a gin tonic, or gin and tonic. Sorry, I say gin tonic without the and in between. But yeah, those are the type of cocktails I would use. Something floral. Also, in the same spirit of gin tonic, I would use Tom Collins would be good. Basically a lemonade type of gin cocktail, or even like a vodka lemonade would be good if those people that like vodka. If they see the rice, slow it down, bring the temperature down a little bit. No. If the measurement of broth to rice is correct, then don't add more broth. If it's going way too fast, then you can add a little bit, but also slow down the, lower the temperature. So here I have a little bit of a mountain of rice. Just want to make sure it spreads out. Not stirring. You stir, you break the grain of the rice, and it starts to become like risotto. Hi, everybody. Oh, this is exciting. Everybody's cooking.
Chef, can you tell us a little bit about your inspiration? Are you from Valencia?
So yes, I have a double nationality from Valencia. My father is from Denia in the Valencian community in the province of Alicante. So I've been growing up with paella all my life. My dad was a paella chef. So when it comes to paellas, my father is the biggest inspiration of all. And then, throughout my professional career, going to competitions have made me better at what I'm doing. This particular paella, I think I would teach it even most differently, if it wasn't for the last 4 years of my profession. Just the specificness of it, understanding each part, like the brown, like right now, if you were all here at the restaurant, you tasted my paella versus your paella, and I didn't use broth, and you guys did, and I actually got even more flavor or equal flavor to you, you would understand that, why that happens, and it's because of being extremely methodical for every step. So, also part of my inspiration, I think, is, throughout my whole life, I've always played sports. So, I've learned that practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So that type of discipline, enables me to create, a better paella. It's funny, through all the competitions I've been through, every chef gets the same ingredients. Everybody knows what they're doing, why it's some better than others. And I think a lot of that is how they take it, how they understand each part of the process. So, a lot of it comes from my family, I think, at the end of the day, and my upbringing, and then everything around me, essentially. How many competitions have I probably participated in the last 4 years, I would say about 10 or 11, I believe. And I haven't won every one. So I got about, I think, 6 first places and one international award and one award for dessert. Somehow I got that one. I have no idea why. Oh, that's too many to count. It's an orange dessert. I did orange in 7 ways. So did a pastry cream of orange with orange sand, orange cake, orange foam, orange gelatin, orange sour patch of orange skin, edible flowers that microgold that taste like a little bit of like a mandarin, and yeah. So those are all the steps. But dessert takes like 4 hours to make from scratch. But I don't know. It was being a little creative there. Right now, my personal groceries coming from the restaurant, and my employees as well. Now I start seeing a little rice. Now I start putting the other vegetables on top. I love Trader Joe's because I live on top of Trader Joe's. Right now, I think that it's very challenging to go to Trader Joe's because of the line, and I don't have time for that. The Safeway, the social Safeway here in Georgetown, is also close to me. Whole Food really does have good products, even though it's a little bit more expensive. So if we can take a good look here at the paella, putting the rest of the vegetables here. So the magical spoon, still important. So with the spoon and where the rice is here, we want to do what I call the slip test. So you put the spoon right there in the paella, and if it slips, no socarrat. If it doesn't slip, we have socarrat. Socarrat is the caramelization that happens on the bottom of the paella pan. And it's actually where all the flavor is, and is what us Valencians call caviar, the Valencian caviar. We love it just as much as regular caviar. So as I see right now, I see a perfect boil. If you can get a close up here in terms of you see how everything is boiling nice and evenly.
Wait, so do we want the spoon to slip or we don't want it to slip?
What's the question?
Do they want the spoon to slip or not slip?
You right now, where I'm at right now, I don't want it to. I want it to slip because it's not fully dry yet. As soon as it starts getting dry, I want to. I want it to. If we use the right amount of olive oil and we use the right amount of chicken, it should. Those are the. That's where the caramelization happens, is from those oils. So that is settling right now on the bottom of the paella pan, and as it sticks, you know, that means the spoon will not slip. So right now it's coming close. This is the level of grain of rice, the size of it, how it should be. If you look at it carefully, it shouldn't have grown too much. At the end is where you want it to stick. If you start seeing it stick now, actually I would turn it, and as long as it's not too brothy, I would turn the fire off. Because once it starts sticking, you don't want it to burn. And so as soon as you start seeing different levels of stickiness in different areas, I want to make sure, right now, nothing really sticks yet, even though everything is dry. It's getting dry here soon.
If we're where you are time-wise, chef, and we still have broth, keep it on a high temperature or lower it?
What's that question? I'm sorry.
Can you repeat the question, please?
So if we're around where the chef is in the process or ahead of him, and we still have a lot of broth in the pan, or more broth than he has, do we keep the temperature high or lower?
No, we'll repeat the question, Jason. Yeah.
The question is if they are ahead of you,
right,
and they still have a lot of broth,
high. Just keep it on. If you have too much broth, finish it up as much as possible on high without overcooking the rice. It will evaporate some, but you know, you do want to make sure it's dry and make sure all the rice. So right now I have some sauerkraut here. I have a little bit there. And also, if it starts crackling, well, that's when I take it off. So you can smell it. If you start to smell something burn a little bit, right at that second, it's perfect. Take it off. Also, another thing is you start hearing crackling. That's the caramelization, the sauerkraut that's happening on the bottom. And you want, you know, at this moment, the paella was under a lot of stress. It was a very intense. It needs to rest here and repose for a couple of minutes before serving. I might get a couple of plates here.
For the person who asked about the broth, did Danny answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
We're going to bring the paella over here. So we can look at it and see what went right, what went wrong. So as we're looking here at the paella, we see here that it's symmetrical. If you taste the rice, it should be a slightly al dente. And then here, the succarat. Here, that's the brownness on the bottom. A little bit more would have helped, but because I smelled a little bit of the little slight burn, I took it off. That's more important. Never be obsessed with succarat. Always think about it as a prize. Leave the perceptions of succarat to me. But essentially here is how all the paella should be, and it's tasty. Having it like this level is good. It is fully cooked, and you can see here. Okay. All right. So at this point, I mean, I did it to show you guys, but you know, you serve it on the table as is, and then you get to enjoy. Do you have any final questions here? Your paellas look like mine, I think.
Chef, if we're
Yes.
we're making it with shrimp or like other seafood, do we do it the
Right.
same, the shrimp in at the same time as the chicken or later?
So that's a great question. It depends if you get the shrimp with head on or head off. So if you get the shrimp with the head on, I would do it in the beginning because the juices of the head of the shrimp is important. Adds flavor to the paella. We make a lot of great broths from that. So I would saute it in the very beginning with olive oil and salt, take it out, and then at the very end, put it at the end. The thing about shrimp, I'm very sensitive, is not to overcook my shrimp. So if it's head off, I would slightly saute it in the very beginning as well. Not to the point that you start seeing the juices come out, because there's no juices in the head since it's headless. But then you make sure you add it at the very end. The steam of the paella will cook the shrimp on its own from raw to cooked within the last 2 minutes of the paella, without, in theory, having to saute it in the beginning. Cool. What are we drinking tonight, guys?
That looks so pretty, Chef. Thank you.
We're
drinking you.
Tempranillo.
Tempranillo, awesome.
We've got Protos, which is
Oh, cool.
from Ribera del
familiar
Duero, Spain.
Yeah, I see Stephanie's wine there. It's a good Tempranillo from, I believe, Rioja. Yeah. You have the wrong jersey, Stephanie's man friend.
Which team are you supporting, Chef? Valencia?
What team are you?
Oh, Valencia. So I've always supported Valencia, but my childhood friend's brother is the president of Levante's soccer team, the other Valencia First Division team. So now I go to more Levante games than I do Valencia games. But I like, you know, Real Madrid is a worthy adversary, but you know, you could be wearing a worse jersey like Barcelona's jersey.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than that. Nothing worse than that. Nothing worse than that. Yeah.
How about asking them to show you?
Cool. Can I see some pictures of some paellas?
Delish. Bummer, Michael.
Awesome. There you go. That looks like a good one, Megan. Crew.
All right, this is
Stephanie. That looks good. Tanya looks good. Drew. Oh.
I'm 5 minutes into rice.
You have some crackling, which I think he said was
Liz, okay.
Get there.
Liz Gardner, that saute pan is really nice for paellas. I use it sometimes at home if I didn't have a paella pan. It's really appropriate because of the thickness on the outside of it. So that one you can make a nice paella for 4, for 6 people. It works out very well.
The Washingtons are the one where the baby's having paella.
Oh my God.
What's the name of the pan you just mentioned?
The name of the pan?
What was the question again?
What was the name of the pan you said that you use at home?
This is just a tall sided.
Oh, just a saute pan, a large one. If I don't have a paella pan, I use the one that Liz Gardner has, because you can use it for 4 to 6 people. Yeah, you can the way it cooks overall is especially over an electric stove is probably the best if you don't have a paella pan.
It's just
And
regular Cuisinart, and I have it on the 2 burner instead of the 1 burner.
She said it's just a regular Cuisinart.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Chef, will you?
Can I see the baby from Charles Washington, please?
Wait, say that again.
Can I see the baby from Charles Washington, please?
Sure.
Say hola, chef. Gracias, chef.
Awesome. Hope you like your paella today.
I think we will. We have a question for you too. Are you going to send like the instructions or the recipe after so we can do this again at home?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. We really enjoyed it.
No worries. If there's any other questions or you guys stuck on, please feel free to email me. Happy to respond to it. I'm going to be doing 3 other paella classes this month: a vegetarian next Wednesday, seafood the Wednesday after that, and the duck and chicken after that one. Then in June, we'll see where we are in terms of like if the restaurants start opening. So if anybody has a nay or yay suggestion, if I should keep doing it on Wednesday, or for June, maybe I move it to Saturday during lunch. That'd be nice to hear. I'm gonna do 2 master classes of Valencian paella, a master class of Valencian paella, and a master class of the seafood paella in June. So that's what's going on. And yeah, please let me know. Please give me as much feedback as possible.
Maggie says it tastes great.
Thank you. All right. Well, we're gonna log off here and let me know.